And welcome on in, everyone. Ring the Bell podcast live here at Insane Games TV. Wrestling podcast, obviously, about everything WWE, AEW, and the world of wrestling. The very little that's still going on. Can you hear me, Tyler? You good?
Yeah.
Just make sure sound looks good. We got a couple things to go over. Kind of a dramatic week here in the wrestling industry. A lot of layoffs and a lot of firings over at WWE. However, they're still going with their live shows, the ones that they can do out of the Performance Center. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Ronda Rousey in the news. Some wrestlers not going to be on WWE for a while everything is going on. Big wrestling game, maybe canceled, maybe not canceled. We'll discuss that. Undertaker's new character, where WrestleMania 38 is going to be, and a lot of other topics here at the Ring the Bell podcast. So let's jump right into it, Tyler. You know, the main topic, obviously, if you're involved in the wrestling world and listening to all the stuff that's going on, big news this week. A lot of wrestlers released from their contracts. I think all in all, I heard about 100 people from backstage to talent to main office to corporate relations all around the company. Some big that's a big news. I mean, obviously, every company is affected by the coronavirus, but we know WWE is taking some measures ahead of time, I guess, to save themselves from some unnecessary costs. Um, so, what do you think about that first, and then I'll kind of go over some of the wrestlers that were let go. You think that's? I mean, are you obviously that's probably expected news. I mean, I wasn't necessarily all that shocked when I heard that they were letting some people go.
Yeah, I mean, when they let wrestlers go, I'm not as shocked because it typically comes around the time after WrestleMania where they release a bunch of names that haven't really done much in the past few months. So I wasn't shocked to see a lot of the wrestlers that they release go. I think they use the circumstance as kind of like their excuse, but
I
they
agree.
usually release a lot of wrestlers anyways around this time a year after WrestleMania to kind of reset, restart, and try and push some new names, some people that are a little bit hotter out at the moment. So I wasn't too surprised. Some of the names I was surprised, but I wasn't too surprised that they released a lot of them.
No, and I agree. I think I think a lot of companies outside of the wrestling world are probably doing that. They're kind of taking advantage of the national crisis to kind of lay off some people that need to go, or like you said, this is a normal WWE timeline. It's right after WrestleMania. They look at the year in general. They look at how good WrestleMania is, and I kind of agree with you in the sense that this probably would have come either way. I think this would have been even if WWE was fine, which I kind of read they still are, but they would have let these people go either way. Let me go over the quick list of people that are let go. These are all on air talent: Kurt Angle, Drake Maverick, Kurt Hawkins, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Heath Slater, Eric Young, EC3, Aiden English, Leo Rush, Sarah Logan, Eric Rowan, Primo, Epico, Mike Canales, Maria Canales, I know I'm saying those wrong, Zack Ryder, No Way Jose, head referee, Mike Chioda. Maybe the biggest surprise, Rusev let go. That's kind of a shocker, maybe, probably the biggest out of all of them. And then a lot of on air or backstage producers, Lance Storm, Fit Finley, and Gregory Helms, known as Hurricane. I'll be honest with it. Fit Finley, kind of shocked with that. That's a guy who's been a producer for quite some time behind the scenes of WWE. Let go, and I don't believe that's probably the end of it. I'm sure there's a lot more talent that's going to be let go, but maybe discussing the ones that I just mentioned. Out of all those, who's the biggest shocker to you? Out of all those that got let go, who do you think? Who are you most shocked with?
I mean, obviously Rusev. I know there was a little bit of problems with him in WWE at the beginning of the year and at the end of last year. I know we were talking about it on previous podcasts about
Hmm.
him going to AEW potentially, but I was pretty shocked because I feel like he was still doing great things with WWE. The fans still liked him and they thought they had the huge reactions whenever he would come out. He always put out good segments. I just feel like he never got the time of day that he really deserved. Um, given his talent, given his promos, given everything that he does for WWE, he's just always gotten bad booking. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that thrives at AEW if he decides to go there because I think a lot of the fans will follow him there, and I think he'll have complete control of his character, which will help him, develop into who Rusev truly is, whether he goes by that name or not. But I think he's going to be the one out of all of them that is definitely probably going to go there.
Um, my shock one, and this could be a shock. None of them. I'm not at all shocked in any of them that were let go. And the reason why I say that is take a look at them. Take a look at that list. It's all people that either A, had personal issues with WWE out in the public, either on Twitter or were venting online. Look at the characters, the wrestlers, and how many times their characters have changed. Like right now, that list. Do you think any of them would have been on either Raw or SmackDown this week, regardless? Maybe Zack Ryder and his team, in the tag team he was on, but really? I mean, Zack Ryder has been back and forth between being on air, being. I mean, I was a big Zack Ryder fan at the beginning of when he started, and I still believe WWE just didn't really handle his character right. But never around. I mean, look at Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson. Those are two I'm a little shocked at. I kind of think they had a good thing going with AJ Styles and the OC. I think that was a pretty good faction that was going on Raw. But I'm a believer in they probably had pretty big contracts. They probably had decent contracts, or like, we don't really need them. We have a hard time trying to find anything for them to do. They're gone. And I don't think AJ Styles was all that happy with it on social media. I think he vented a little bit, kind of blamed himself. But when I look at all of them, Rusev, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Rusev just isn't a character that I'm all behind. I feel like he struggles with having a decent character. His character comes off as somewhat boring. I mean, Primo, Epico. I mean, really, do you find that they're not really all that entertaining superstars? They really aren't. I mean, Mike and Maria, they've wanted out now for a year. No way, Jose. Again, are these people that are we? Let me put you. Are you going to miss any of them next week on Raw or SmackDown?
Well, a lot of them haven't even been on Raw or SmackDown, so.
Right, exactly. So there's not. I
But
don't.
I mean, given the circumstances, you can't really expect all of them to be on SmackDown and
True.
Raw.
I just.
So, I mean, before everything that was happening, there were some of them that were on those shows.
Right.
Rusev wasn't there for a while.
True.
I don't know what was going on, but he was pretty much a staple, always on Raw or SmackDown. Gallows and Anderson, same with them. Um, you know, there really wasn't any others that really jumped off the page for me. But
I just feel like when I look at all of them, I don't want to say, not to be rude, not to be like misfit toys. I just feel like they don't have strong characters in WWE. I don't feel like they have a strong following. I mean, even Eric Rowan was trying a new character, and it just. I mean, yeah, the Birdcage was interesting for a couple weeks, but then it just wasn't. It wasn't
I mean,
there.
when I see them release a list like this, though, it goes back to what I've been saying for a long time with WWE is that they keep bringing back older wrestlers because they know they draw money. Yeah, so what? But then what does that do? That takes away from bringing in these characters that they have already and making them better. Like
Right.
Drake Maverick at one point, he was
True.
probably one of the funniest segments on Raw and SmackDown with the 24/7 championship. When EC3 came, everybody was so excited because he was such a strong talent at Impact, and he was very good on NXT. And they did absolutely nothing with him. Same with No Way Jose. I mean, he was one of the top talents on NXT as well too. So
Yeah.
I just think a lot of it has to do with bad booking and Vince McMahon as a total not really taking the chance on any of them to do something.
I agree, and I think that's where I think a lot of them. I agree in the sense of I think a lot of their characters are controlled by what WWE allows them to do and what they don't allow them to do. And I think a lot of them being let go is an example of them not being able to control their own characters. It's like WWE saying, here's how we want you to be, here's how we want your character to be, and then when it fails, it's like, all right, see you later. You didn't do a good job. Well, come on. I mean, you got to let these guys be their own. Let them create different segments and let them create different segments for each of their individual characters that may allow them to control their own destiny within WWE. It's like for example, you and I going to work at WWE, and they're like, "Here's your character. Here's how you're going to be. Here's what you're not allowed to do. Here's what you're going to be." And then 2 months later, when it doesn't necessarily go with the crowd, oh, we're letting you go. You did an awful job. You're awful. Like, okay, we only did what you want us to do. So I think there's a little bit of a sense where you got to let these wrestlers do what they want to do. But when I look at this list, I'm pretty shocked that it even though I feel like it's really not going to affect the current matches and the current shows, it's a pretty big list, and the list is pretty has some names that you and I are familiar with: Eric Rowland, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, Kurt Angle. I mean, the list is substantial. There's some pretty decent people on there. And again, Kurt Angle, while he is well known, he's on a legend contract, probably relatively high. I mean, has he really even been on WWE TV at all lately? No. Um, you know, I just don't feel like he probably brings a lot to the table, and he probably makes a significant amount.
I was actually surprised that the Revival wasn't on that list. I thought they would have been prime suspects for that.
See, that to me, that's where I would have been if I was Vince McMahon. I'd be like, let's start with the people that don't like where they are. Okay, Revival, Mike and Maria. These are guys that constantly go on Twitter, social media, venting how they don't like booking, venting how they don't like where their characters are at. Let's get rid of them first, and then we'll make the chain to who's making a lot that we don't utilize and we don't have them. Maybe restructure, restructure some of them. But and I did read a lot of these releases were negotiated, and they were mutually agreed upon and negotiated releases, and they got 3 months pay, and they got a pretty good buyout. And so a lot like Luke Gallows, they might have got a decent amount to say adios, we'll move on somewhere else. um, but I think I agree, they should have started with people like the Revival and people that had been unhappy with WWE, and that's a starting point, and then we'll go from there, you know but pretty decent list. Nonetheless, who out of those? I think you already kind of mentioned before, but who out of those do you think will go to AEW? Who, if you're AEW, you're Cody Rhodes or you're the Khan family, Tony Khan. Who are you going after first?
I mean, I think it's obvious you got to go after Rusev. He's a big name.
Hmm.
He would kind of bring, a little bit of pizzazz, if you will, to the heavyweight position, title challengers, I guess you could say. I think Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are another strong one, just because they already have a lot of those fans that they had from New Japan that watch Dynamite every week, and then they also have some of the guys that they wrestled with over in New Japan that they could form a Bullet Club with.
Hmm.
Um, I think one that would obviously fit well with everything that's going on with Brody Lee is Eric Rowan. He's kind of dark and mysterious, but I would say that would probably be it. I mean, I could see them going after some of the smaller guys. Like EC3. I think he would be a big one too, because he had a lot of fans in Impact, and he's a good wrestler. He still has a few years left in him. I mean, he's almost 40, but he's one of those guys that a lot of people follow from those smaller promotions.
I, I hate to say I agree with you all the time, but you said a lot of the ones I agree with. I think Rusev is just by the sense of his nature. I think his character is boring. I think they'll get rid of him quick. He has a following. He's well known, well branded, and I think it'd be dumb for AEW not to go after him. Um, Eric Rowan, I think, could team up with him. Um, and I think they can kind of bring that back, that whole the Wyatt family type storyline a little bit, kind of not necessarily, but that dark path and that dark type of character that they're so good at creating. So I kind of think Eric Rowan will probably come. I think they could probably get him for relatively cheap. And I think that could be particularly good. Zack Ryder, I kind of feel like Zack Ryder could be a good fit over at AEW. I think they could push him on a good singles path for Zack Ryder, and I think he's relatively good friends with Cody Rhodes. So, and I think Cody Rhodes already tweeted something about Zack Ryder being let go, so that could be potential there. Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson. Again, I feel like that could be a good team to bring in the tag team division for AEW. But where I think If I was Tony Khan, I'm not sure I would bring back really any of them because, in my opinion, I would say these guys were let go for a reason at WWE. Either their characters didn't flesh well, or the audience in the universe WWE universe didn't mesh with them well. I would actually go after the producers that were let go from WWE. And
I disagree.
you think so? Because I my let
I
me
disagree 100%.
well, let me say my argument, and then I'll let you go. I think going after the producer for WWE, Finley, Gregory Helms, even though I think he was only there recently, in I forget who the first one I said, um, but there's three of them that got let go. I think those
Lance
three,
Storm.
Lance Storm, thank you, Lance Storm. Those are guys that Lance Storm's been in the business forever. Finley's been with WWE in the producer side as a backstage agent for at least 10 years, and Gregory Helms I think is within a year or two. Um, they got knowledge of what WWE is doing. They know how WWE is producing. They know what their capabilities are, what their schematics are. They may even have some intel as to what's going on in WWE backstage. I feel like they could bring now. It may only be short term. They may say, "Oh, we'll get a good year out of you and get a lot of information, and then we're gonna kick it to the curb after." But I feel like they could put some WWE experience, whether they want it or not, and that could be your argument, but rather they want WWE experience behind their backstage could ultimately help them on the production side. What's your disagreement with that?
Well, my disagreement is that they will bring WWE experience to it, and that's exactly what AEW is not about. Is trying to make it like WWE. They're trying to make it into their own show, which is why I think I'm so attracted to it because it's so different from the regular WWE product, where you have different types of vignettes, different type of matches, different type of announcers. They have different tournaments, they have different titles. Everything about AEW is different. The way they approach everything is different. So when you bring in someone from the producing side, that yeah, some of those guys might bring in, something that they weren't allowed to bring into WWE and bring something great to the table. But I think what AEW has right now is really good. So if it's not broke, why try and bring another face into it? And that could go into bringing in guys from WWE as well. Maybe they say, I'm not going to go after any of these guys, not only because A, I don't want to pay for it, because, we're not making a crazy amount of cash right now from fans and whatnot because of everything going on, but also, you know, we have great talent that people are just now recognizing. Whether
Right.
they came from Impact or Ring of Honor or New Japan, they're getting this spotlight that all these guys don't get in the United States because they're indies or over in Japan. So I could see them going both ways. With what I've said, I think it's more going to be, especially right now with the pandemic going on, they're going to not sign anybody. But
True.
in the future, I could see them signing a few of those big names. But I could see them being like, you know what, we don't really need these guys from WWE. We have enough people. If we decide that one of them is making a name for themselves, yeah, let's bring them in. But right now, they have a lot of good going their way.
I mean, I could see them not signing anybody and just saying, we're happy what we have. I mean, I think out of all of them, Rusev is a pretty decent name to bring on board. I think he kind of has that big physique. I think he could be. I'm not quite sure they have too many of those on AEW. The real big guys, that could bring a lot of pain and a lot of you know.
I mean, I feel like they do.
You think so? I mean, I'm talking like big guys, like old guys. I'm thinking like Rhino type guys and Rusev, and not necessarily Big Show, but like kind of like real big guys that can really. You think they have a lot at AEW?
I mean, they have Lance Archer, who they're pushing right now. They
Yeah,
have Jake Hager, who's 6'6". I mean, they have guys that are bigger. I just think that's not their type of wrestling style, though.
true.
They're more, the crazy maneuvers, and when I watch AEW, I actually can watch their matches from start to finish. Where WWE, can be a little bit dry and harder to watch. I think just because what AEW does is very different. They bring a lot of different fighting styles to AEW, where WWE doesn't really allow people to do, those different types of fighting styles.
So let me ask you this: out of let's say AEW hires a few of the producers from WWE. When you read that, what do you think is the reason why they did it?
Maybe to
Tell
bring like maybe to bring like fresh, new storylines into it that like add an opinion or two with it. I'm not saying that Lance Storm, Fit Finley, or Gregory Helms can't bring anything to the table. I think they definitely can. I just think with what they have going on at AEW, there's no reason to bring anybody in. If they were suffering from like bad viewership numbers or, didn't have really any storylines going, then yeah, I would say, yeah, bring them in. But right now, I think AEW is so new. They have so many opportunities with different rivalries, different, matchups that they don't really need a lot of different ideas right now
right,
because they have so many that they haven't done. Where with WWE, they've been around since forever, so they are constantly looking for the next best thing, the next best like wow factor, someone that's gonna come in and be like, oh, do this because it's never been done, or modify an old storyline and make it into something that's better because you're gonna get a great
right.
reaction. So
I think this could be one of the biggest challenges to watch AEW. 'Cause I don't think since this whole AEW WWE rivalry has started, I don't think we've had a situation where a big group of people have been let go. Um,
you
yeah,
just had just like random
randos.
people,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think this could be a
I think it's an
telling
interesting
sign.
situation in general. You
Right.
know, I feel for AEW like I feel for the XFL because you just started a new company, and then this huge thing happens where these brand new companies, they need cash flow right away to replace the money that they put into it. And now you're not getting it, but luckily AEW did sign that huge contract with TNT for a 3-year contract through that network. But I mean, still, you gotta think like these guys,
Right.
they're hurting right now
Yeah.
because they don't know if the future's for certain.
That's true, and it's funny how you talked about the comparisons with AEW and XFL, and we'll talk a little bit about the XFL at the end of the show. But I think this whole situation is a telling sign for AEW because I think you're gonna find out a lot about AEW. I think here because I think if you find that they don't sign any of the producers or I'm just gonna put it producers right now. If they don't sign any of the producers, that is a sign that they're not at all interested in what WWE is doing. They like what they're doing. They feel like it's different than what WWE is doing, and that could be a big tale. That could show a lot. However, if they do sign them, it's going to kind of show that okay, they really want to see what WWE is doing. They really want to bring in some of that WWE experience that they may or may not have right now. So I think when you watch that, that could be a telling time, a telling side as to what they want to do. And same thing with the talent. I could see them 100% not signing any of them. They don't have the time. They don't have the room as their roster kind of full. The money. And they just may not necessarily need them. They may consider them damaged goods. I don't know. Or they could be like, oh, we want a bunch of those, let's grab them. And that's going to be the, okay, AEW is really trying to go after WWE if they're trying to sign a lot of their talent. So I kind of think this is a big stepping stone for AEW in a telling sign of how they're going to operate in the future based off of how they react to all these people being let go.
I think the one person that they have on their roster that can kind of guide them in the right sense is Chris Jericho, and not to be like a Chris Jericho stan
True.
or anything,
Yeah.
but he was there when WCW and WWE were going back and forth. He saw what WCW did wrong. They were grabbing every single person from WWF that got released. That was a name,
Right.
because they just wanted all of the people, that all the recognition, all of everything. WCW wouldn't have been anything without WWF. I
True.
mean, that's just how it
Yeah.
was. They just glorified, the people that WWF could not.
Right.
So I think he's going to be a big telling factor in this because he's going to be like, listen, we don't need all of these guys, maybe one or two, but like we don't need guys from WWE to be successful because what they have going is they're still a success. I mean, granted, they're not going up against Raw or SmackDown, but they don't need to.
Right. Right.
They have their own audience, so I think they just need to be smart with it. I can see them going after maybe one of their producers, and the only person I think that they would go after would be Fit Finley, just because he's been around forever.
A lot of
But I
experience.
a lot of experience, and he's been to pretty much every promotion across the land. So I could see him being in both. Maybe Lance Storm even too, but I just think right now they don't need it. If they needed it, they I could see them going after a bunch of those guys, but I think AEW is in the position now where they could be like WWE, where like go somewhere else, make a name for yourself. If
And
we
come
feel
back.
like we want you, then we'll go after you.
Either way, I think we both can agree it's going to be an interesting road for AEW and what they do here. I think it'll be interesting to see the fallout of this over there because I think this is the first time we've had this situation where WWE has let go a big amount of personnel, and it'll be interesting to see what AEW goes. I think we both agree on
I
that.
think another thing that's an interesting fact is that they had promotions for Drake Maverick this past week. They've had promotions for Sarah Logan this past week. I'm pretty sure they even had some for Leo Rush. And now, like, what are they going to do moving forward that they've released all these people because they were a part of tournaments and,
Yep.
things like this for, Money in the Bank or Cruiserweight or whatever have you. So, it's not really good planning on their part.
Well, again, we talked about this before this discussion that this is normally the time this type of stuff happens. So you might have found that these guys are going to be released either way. But one story that did come out, I believe it's from the channel Wrestlenomics, and they talk about the money side of wrestling and just the general format of any wrestling in general. But they put out a story that went out today that said WWE is projected to be extremely profitable for 2020, more than 2019 and 2018, and even with the pandemic going on, still projected to be profitable. So this move by WWE is being done to a pre-pandemic move to make sure that their profitability ratios stay the same and they maintain that amount of profit that they're projected to make. Kind of crazy. Normally you look at companies and they say we're letting these go because we're losing money, we're not projected to be profitable. WWE's doing this to maintain their profitability for the end of the year. So it kind of shows that WWE is very, very all about their profits and all about making that money. And I think it's showing that they want to maintain. They're trying to build their stock ratio, their stock value back up. They're trying to build the financial side back up on WWE. It's been taking a hit, but they are projected to have a great year, and this move is to keep them on that path of having a great profitable year. Do you think it's maybe a little unnecessary for WWE to take these steps based off of that story if it is deemed to be accurate?
No, I mean, I know me and you could talk about money till we're blue in the face, but like I think WWE they've just known hardships before, and
Yeah.
they would do anything to avoid that. So I think everybody knows that it's a business, and
Yep.
like Vince says, if I let you go, you make a name for yourself. I'll bring you back. But they all wrestlers understand that this is what happens in the world of wrestling. So.
Hang on, I'm just trying to pull up. I wanted to give you some of the highlights. Vince McMahon's statement and what they're doing. I had it on here, but I deleted it. Um, yeah, I don't think I can pull it up in time. But basically, they said that they're, this whole what they're doing. He had a call last week or 2 days ago. They basically said, obviously there's hard times, coronavirus going on, blah 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 blah. Wrestlers will receive individual communication via text after this call about their own individual situations. Did you know WWE building like a whole huge brand new headquarters? Like huge. They
Where?
bought it's in Stanford. They bought this building and it's huge, but they stopped production of that for 6 months. They reduced board member salaries and they reduced executive salaries. Um, they've stopped production of some other new venue that they're starting. I forget what it was. And obviously the release of all these personnel, over 100 personnel, a lot of people furloughed, 3 months of furlough. So they're making a lot of steps, and hopefully that, I mean, saves them a lot of money. But the production of a brand new headquarters, I'm like, whoa! I didn't realize they're building this whole brand new building. It's huge. They already bought. It's already built. It's like a huge building that they're converting over the WWE headquarters. So kind of crazy. But what's jump out of the economic side of WWE? I think you and I both agree. We can talk about the money side forever, and I think out of this whole situation, I think what's the most interesting is seeing what AEW is going to do. I think this can kind of show you the company that they wanted to be, and going after them is going to show them how they're going to operate. Not going after them is going to show them what they want. So I think it'll be an interesting thing, either way. Making some big headlines throughout this week, Ronda Rousey made some comments about the WWE fans. She considers them to be extremely ungrateful. She wasn't really all that happy with them during the time that she was debuting. And I think for her first year, I think she only wrestled for a year, and then she stopped for a bit. Um, and from what I've read and from what I've seen, it was not a work. It was her being honest and that, but she felt that the WWE fans were ungrateful towards her and not appreciative of her and the time that she put with WWE. What's your take on that? And then I'll go after. You feel
My take
like
is suck it up. You're coming off one of the most absurd finishes in MMA history for women's, getting not only knocked out but choked out, and you expect to come in being this big name like, anybody that watches WWE or any wrestling also watches MMA.
right,
It goes hand in hand. Dana White even watches WWE. Like we're all fans of each other. So everybody knows what happened to Ronda Rousey. You're coming off
right,
that. You want to come in here being the baddest bitch when you can't, when you get choked out or, tap out to someone in MMA like that, and expect, us to be like, oh yeah, yeah, you're definitely the baddest, yada yada yada. We're ungrateful because you haven't shown anything in
right.
WWE, and you were just handed the keys to the women's division and said, "Here, go for a
True.
ride. Let's see how it goes." So, I mean, honestly, I wasn't a fan of her coming to WWE from the beginning. I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew she was only there temporarily. It's just like Brock Lesnar. Every time he comes, he gets the title. He has it for a little while, then he's off into the sunset until the next round. That's exactly what happened with Ronda Rousey. And, I'm not ungrateful. I just can predict exactly what is always going to happen with WWE, I feel like, because they make it so,
Right.
like, out in the open. Like, here's Ronda Rousey, everybody. She's going to be your champion for a year. Have fun with her. Like, we all knew.
I want to say to her, what do you expect? If you know anything about WWE, the fans could go this way or the fans can go that way. You don't know what they're going to do. And I think Ronda Rousey, this may be one of the worst developed characters ever brought into WWE. I think they did everything wrong with Ronda Rousey's character. She, first off, phenomenal career at UFC. I think we both. I mean, yeah, but yeah, she redeveloped the women's division at UFC. She created probably one of the first well-known women fighters in the last 5 years to really reshape that division and where it is now. I think it was a great move. I think all UFC fighters or MMA fighters, when their career of real time fighting is over, they have a legitimate, I don't want to say character because it's not character, but they have a legitimate brand name coming out of MMA fighting or UFC. They should ultimately look at WWE. Why not get that paycheck? Why not? Why not make millions more in a way storytelling wrestling in WWE. So I think it was the right path for Ronda Rousey. She had a great career. Last two fights she got destroyed. It was time for her to move. But she should have walked into WWE with that badass character and that
Which I think she did.
I see. I don't think she did. I think she came out with it. She smiled and she had that smile on her look.
Yeah, but she still acted like she was a badass when she got in the ring. I think the biggest problem is that they just gave her all the opportunity. She did not earn anything, which I
Right.
think is the worst way of doing it to the fans because it's just like, yeah, it's basically what this is my point. When they do stuff like that, basically they're saying UFC is far superior in regards to physicality and training and
Right.
everything that goes along with it than the WWE. Which, if you're a WWE fan, you want to think that all of these guys. If I saw these guys in a dark alley or something like that, they would beat the shit out of me, like because they're
Right.
badass people.
Right.
But when they bring in these UFC fighters, they're like, oh, they're gonna be way ahead of whatever we have going. She's better than Charlotte Flair. She's better than Becky Lynch. Basically, what that does is takes all the time and all the work that you put into all these wrestlers and just shoves them down. And WWE is very good at doing that.
No, they
And
do it
that's the
well. Yeah.
problem.
No,
Look at
they definitely do.
AEW. Look at AEW. Jake Hager, undefeated in Bellator, UFC, essentially, loses to John Moxley. He was undefeated. They were both undefeated, but John Moxley still beat Jake Hager. They don't make it seem like Jake. They made it seem Jake Hager's this big bad creature, but he could still lose. He still lost. Where
Right.
Ronda Rousey, she came in, it took like a year. She didn't even lose once.
Right.
The last time she lost was when she lost the title.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable as a fan.
I agree, and I think that's WWE, and I think you kind of hit on it. It's WWE trying to make WWE like a real time, like, oh, this is real wrestling. That's why they love to bring over these other guys. They're like, oh, these are real. I mean, come on, we know the difference. See, I think that's kind of, I think that's where the way WWE kind of sold the whole character, and I'm sure Ronda Rousey had some say in how she wanted it to be done, but the whole way they debuted her, the whole way that they kept her going, they just alienated the entire fan base. It's like you're coming in here and you're saying that she is just so much better than everybody else, and this and that, and it's just. I just don't. I didn't like her entrance music was wrong. I think they should have followed the Brock Lesnar way. Paul Heyman should have been her guy. She should have done no talking. Zero. She was awful on the mic. I don't want to listen. When I look at and I feel that Ronda Rousey is the female version of Brock Lesnar in that Brock Lesnar is not good on the mic. He's very good just not talking and having Paul Heyman do all the talking for. Would you agree with that? That there,
Right.
I feel like Ronda Rousey could have been so much better if she did no talking and allowed Paul Heyman to do everything for her. And I feel like her character could have been 10 times better. Don't give her the title right away. Have her pounce on a few female wrestlers right away. Have her make her way up the ladder. Just don't give her the title right away and have her walk out with it. I just feel like they did everything wrong, and I feel like the way WWE did it made the fans boo her. And I think that's what, and she never got over on the fans, either as a heel or a face. Neither one. They just did not like the way they did her character, and I think that's
And a
why.
lot of it has to do with exactly what I was saying. Is it was the Roman Reigns effect? Like they're
Yeah,
shoving something down your throat where you don't want it. Everybody likes Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair or Sasha Banks or Bayley because they're organic. They've been with the company
right,
for a while. They've worked their way through it. They've made their runs. They've had their trials and tribulations. It's just not fair for fans and WWE wrestlers as a whole when you get people just they come in, they had a great career elsewhere, and now they're a champion. It's kind of like bringing in Gronk. Now he's the
right,
24/7 champion. Has zero experience training in a facility for WWE. Maybe does a little bit as a joke, but
right,
like it's like a lot of people. They train their whole lives to do this.
right,
They're professional wrestlers for a reason.
right.
To bring in somebody like that, like Gronk or Ronda Rousey or anybody else to win the title and just like that's your champion now. It makes WWE look like a joke to me.
Well, look at, and I agree. Look at, for example, look who just got let go, Kurt Angle. Okay, Kurt Angle when he came into WWE was a gold medalist in wrestling. He earned his way up. You look at the Attitude Era, and I know that's my favorite era. I always reference it at least once every episode. But you look at people like Chris Jericho. Where did Chris Jericho come from? He wasn't a celebrity before. He made his way up through the ranks in either smaller wrestling divisions, smaller organizations, or promotions. Same thing. You look at Stone Cold, started out in WCW, made his way over to WWF, made his way up the ranks. You look at The Rock, football player, wasn't even a wrestler, football player that they brought in, and he worked his way up the ranks through the wrestling. But you look at all Triple H, Undertaker. These weren't guys, like you said, that were New England Patriots tight end or UFC fighting. And now I get big names or big money and big box office sells. I get it. Gronk is going to sell a stadium. Conor McGregor, if they it would sell a stadium. Ronda Rousey, they get it. But there is an
I feel like
effect
though if
after that.
Conor McGregor is an anomaly to the whole entire situation. And the reason why I say that, yeah, Ronda Rousey says she's an actual WWE fan. Gronk says he's an actual WWE fan. But I feel like Conor McGregor would actually allow the organic side of WWE to come out where he would fight for his right to be a champion rather than
Right.
just be given it.
Yeah. But he understands the business, the brand name. Like he's a brand name. Like he gets that.
He's the guy that he understands the business side of it because he understands what sells, and what
Yeah.
sells is stories. That's why he's throwing stuff at Khabib's bus. That's why he's going after Nate Diaz or Nick Diaz on Twitter. That's why he does what he does, because he understands that if he does this, it will then make for more money down the road.
But see, here's the difference, I think. Conor McGregor is a smart businessman. He's going to walk in and tell WWE, here's how I want to do my character. Here's what I want to do. Not what you want
As
to
he
do.
should.
But see, here's the difference. I think Ronda Rousey allowed WWE to build her character. And that's where it
I
failed.
agree.
I think WWE trying to build these
But you gotta
people's.
understand, most of these people, like, there's two people that come to mind when I think of smart business people. Conor McGregor, in the world of fighting, Conor McGregor and Floyd Money Mayweather. And the reason being is because they've made so much money because they know what sells in the box offices for boxing and what sells in UFC. And I think that would then translate to WWE. Like, Floyd Mayweather's never going to fight in WWE, obviously. Never
Right.
would have. He's a boxer through and through. But Conor McGregor, because UFC is so similar to wrestling, it would make sense. Where, you get guys like, I don't know, Ken Shamrock was the first one that ever went from UFC to WWF. He wasn't the world's smartest guy. He was a great wrestler. I mean, everybody loved him versus The Rock or him versus whomever, but he wasn't a caliber that Conor McGregor is, in the sense of he knows what's best for the business that he's a part of, that he's attached to. And that's why Dana White will never want to get rid of Conor McGregor, regardless
Right.
of all the antics and things that he says. He loves it because he's
He's
making so
money.
much money off of it.
And I think one guy you're forgetting, well, you may agree or not, I do believe Brock Lesnar's in that list. Brock Lesnar knows money. He knows how to negotiate. He knows how to go back and forth. He tells WWE what he's going to do. He tells UFC what he's going to do. And again, I think he
At
brings the
first,
money.
I agree. At first, though, I would have disagreed. But, I think what I've respected about Brock Lesnar is that he's allowed to put people over, where back in the day, he was never about that. He was the guy that was being put over. He was the guy that, I'm not losing to this guy, but now he's allowing to have guys elevate above him because he cares about, the future. Because obviously, he has more matches behind him than he does in front of him.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. But either way, Ronda Rousey's comments are said to be real, not a work. I kind of think they're a work. I feel like I think she wants to sell herself as a heel, and this could be a good way of doing it, is talking shit on the WWE fans.
I think she's honestly done with WWE. At least I hope she is. I think the WWE women's division is stacked. I think they don't need a character like her. I
They don't
mean,
need her.
you have Sasha Banks, who isn't a champion right now. You have people like Mandy Rose, which I don't know if you saw this. They released a statistic on most fan interactions, and I think there was like 4 or 5 from WWE, all from the women's division. Out of every single sport, NFL, NBA, WWE, NHL, you name it, MLB, and there were 5 women from WWE that were top 10, and they're not, none of which were champions in the women's division. So they have the people there, they have the
Hmm.
talent. They don't need Ronda Rousey.
No, save some money. This whole trying to save money. Do you really need her? They don't. Um. Yeah. So, and that's what I'm saying. Fat Boy with the Chain says, hearing Dan talk about UFC is dot 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 interesting. I know a little bit about UFC.
What was the last UFC match that you watched?
Mm,
Honestly, I
probably the
can't even
Conor
remember the
McGregor
last one.
one.
I can't even remember the last one I watched.
Probably the
I,
Conor
every
McGregor
time
one.
they're on, I always forget that they're on,
Well,
and
you
then
gotta
like I
pay. The
miss it, and
problem
then
is
I'm like, God damn it!
I realize how much I benefit from the WWE network. Is that I don't like paying $59.99 for a fight. It just isn't.
I don't
I'm
understand
done
why
with those.
UFC doesn't have a network themselves, or like try and brand themselves to
I think
a
they have a
streaming
network.
service. Well, I don't
They
understand
just,
why they don't have like a streaming service like
yeah.
WWE Network. Do they?
They
I
just
mean, if
don't.
they do,
They have a network that you can go watch UFC content, but I don't think you can't get the matches on there live.
I don't understand why they don't do it just based off of the way WWE Network does it, because they have years and years of content that they
Oh
can
yeah,
just put onto it from 1987 or whenever they first started all the way up until now. I'm sure people would love to go back and watch old UFC fights from the beginning, whether it's,
right.
Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, or even Brock Lesnar back in the day, or Chuck Liddell.
I I don't know. I'm guessing they probably have something, but look at WWE. They're trying to sell their network rights to like ESPN, which I think would be good. But then again,
I wouldn't blame them for doing that. I mean,
no, why not?
ESPN's owned by Disney. Disney has all the money in the freaking world right now.
Right. And ESPN would love that content, but that then reads into, we're gonna have to start buying the pay-per-views, and I don't want to buy I think they'll lose money. I do. I don't think people. I think they got rid of the whole idea of buying pay-per-views, and I don't think people
I'm
want
not
to go
sure they
back to
would
that.
lose money. I'm thinking they would lose viewership the
Probably.
most.
I agree with that. I think the money they would lose will be made up by them selling the rights to ESPN. And I'm sure
Right.
it'll be a pretty decent amount. Let's go over. We had a bunch of other topics. We'll save them for next week. Let's finish out with one that's kind of current to this past week. XFL. I think the day we had our show last week announced that they're filing for bankruptcy. I don't think we touched on that. Um, another Vince McMahon company. Chapter 11, though. So this is an interesting thing. Chapter 11 is reorganizing debt, not necessarily closure. Chapter 7 is sell off, closure, and you're done. Chapter 11 is reorganizing debt. So I haven't seen too many stories out there about it, but any common person would understand that I don't necessarily think they're done. They're just, I mean, let's be honest. Based
I, I
off here,
think I think they're not done, obviously. I think they're just taking the L for this year, given the whole
yeah,
pandemic, and then just going to come back a little bit stronger.
I
I mean,
think it's smart.
this is a classic smart businessman move. I mean,
It is. It's smart.
our president has filed for bankruptcy how many times? I mean, and he's still one of the richest people in the world. So
The way I look at it is they know they're first off, XFL only made money through merchandise ticket sales and live content. And we talk about TV deals with AEW and WWE and that they sell the right. The way XFL did it was they got money per week from Fox and ESPN. So what that means is for week 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, after that week, they got a paycheck from them. They got paid weekly based off of the viewership based off. So when the show stopped, no more TV money. So that was gone. So you got to look at that's money right there gone. Ticket sales obviously not coming in and merchandise not coming in. So you look at, and I'm sure Vince McMahon or his legal team or financial advisor probably said, okay, we got to let these people go. We can't continue paying them. We're just going to keep losing money left and right. It's at least another year until we get things going again. But at the same time, this could be an opportunity to file Chapter 11, reorganize that debt, put yourself in a better spot, and go off and be successful. But I kind of think that it's not chapter 7. If it was chapter 7, I'd be like, okay, he's done. But it's not chapter 7. Why would you want to reorganize debt if you plan on closing? There's just no
right,
point.
and I would say the XFL was a success this year, and the reason why I say that is because they've had players that were signed from the XFL to the NFL. When you have stuff like that happen, it shows that the league has a purpose. The
Right.
purpose of the league is to give these players another shot, at being recognized. And I think the XFL, right now, I look at them as the developmental league for the NFL. I mean,
Yep.
that's just what they are right now. They're giving guys opportunities to then go up into the NFL, which is obviously the gold standard of football. Maybe down the line it's going to be even with each other, but I think it's hard to professional football is a monopoly at the moment.
Oh
NFL
yeah, you
owns
can't.
it.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. It's going to take a very, very long time to prove yourself as being up there with the NFL, because the NFL's been around since forever, just like WWE. And I think Vince McMahon understands that. But I would say, XFL this season, I would call it a success just based off of all the players that they've had signed to the NFL. I think guys are even, if they don't get drafted in the NFL this year, they're like, you know what? I have a second option. I could go to the XFL. This doesn't end my career just because I didn't get drafted to the NFL, which I think is good for football, just like it's good for wrestling because you have disparity. You have different leagues that you can go to. That's I mean, that's primarily what wrestling's all about. You don't succeed in WWE, you go to AEW or Ring of Honor or New Japan. You get recognition, you go back to the top to get
Yeah.
the best of the best. So
I ultimately think they will continue to move on. So I'll just throw out one simple question: do you think XFL is back or not in some
next
form?
year,
Not next year, maybe a year, 2 years. But do you think are they back at some
oh
point?
yeah, for sure. I mean
I
I think they should be. I think they brought a lot of great moments to football this year. So
I agree. I
they
think they're
brought
back.
a lot of differences to football too, like rules and regulations and things like that. That not only was good for football fans, but good for the NFL to see what they're not doing that they could help improve the game as a whole.
So let me ask you this question to kind of bring this back to wrestling. XFL, new company, launched what 2 years ago, had some troubles now they're going through. Do you think AEW at all has issues like XFL? Do you think AEW is all going to get to the point where, let's say this goes on another 4 or 5 months, do you feel like, remember, WWE has ample amount of resources. AEW, I know the Khan family's worth a lot of money, but do you think at some point AEW starts to run into a financial struggle?
I'm gonna say no, and the only reason for that is because of TNT. Their contract with TNT. I mean, obviously, as you explained, it's different structure to the XFL. They're getting paid regardless because it's a
Hmm.
TV deal. So I think that's what's the biggest difference. And honestly, I think they're still releasing great content on TNT. So as long as they keep it up, they're still having tournaments. They're still planning on doing their next pay per view. I think that they'll be fine. They have a lot of good content that they're producing. A lot of wrestlers that haven't even fought yet that they've brought over. Matt Hardy
Right.
even hasn't even had his first match yet. So
No. I feel like they have a lot of resources available. I don't think they're going to quit on it too much, but I believe for the short term they're fine. I feel like if they get to 6 8 months and this is still kind of going on, I feel like they could have an issue. I don't think they have a year of being like they are now. I feel like if this for some reason, again, we all hope this ends sooner than later, but let's say this goes on, I don't think they have a year to be like this, and they're gonna be like, oh, I think at some point they will pull the. They could fall into the same situation as the XFL, but in the short term, like assuming this starts to get cleared up June, July, I feel like they're fine. But this starts going into some longer and longer and longer, I feel like they could have an issue sooner than later.
right.
All right. Anything you want to quick bring up at all, or we kind of went over everything beforehand? But yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys watching the Ring the Bell. Right here on Insane Games TV, we have No Look coming up with Tyler and AC Weezy up next at 4 o'clock. A little Insane Games live playing Warzone later tonight here on the channel. Another great episode. Ring the Bell. We'll be back next week right here on Friday. Anything to close
Drop
out?
that.
There you go. You guys have a good one. Thank you for tuning in. No Look up next.